Thank you, Rob. Thanks so much, brother. I'm really excited to be here and part of this community and speaking right now. And Omar, dude, that was amazing. I haven't fully sat like I sat through a couple of your presentations before, and I listened to some of it, but I sat through most of this one, and that was so epic. So we'll talk more about your presentation later, but it was great. Okay, everybody. So today's presentation is I'm going to go ahead and share screen, but before I get into the presentation, I want to make a quick announcement. And if Rob, once I share screen, if you can. Actually, I need to make sure my audio is shared as well. Hold on. Once I share screen, if you can make sure it shows up.
Absolutely.
Okay, share audio. Boom, boom, boom. Let me know if you see my screen. See my screen?
Yeah. Do you want to do half, or do you want to full screen it?
Yeah, if I can be like in the corner maybe, and then
Gotcha.
the rest of it. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, everybody. I just want to let everyone know that tomorrow we're doing an impromptu event that I just put together. It's going to be live on YouTube and also in the Zoom. It's UFO UAP Disclosure Conference. I only sent out an email 2 days ago, and check it out. We already have 899 people registered, and then we're going to also be going on YouTube, so it'll be a few hundred people there. But I'm sending another email out, so it's going to be at least 2,000 people probably registered a part of this event. Omar is going to be in it as well. Omar from Watchers. Hosted by myself, New Reality and Watchers Talk. And basically, this is impromptu because it's in order to create a positive timeline and a fusion of positive awareness and information. But the subtitle to this conference really is Beyond UFO Disclosure Conference, right? We're going to take it to the next level. So if you're interested, you don't have to go ahead and look for the Zoom registration link. You can just go to our YouTube, Portal to Ascension, youtube.com/Portal to Ascension. The video is already there. You can subscribe. You'll get the notification live. We're live in 21 hours, so check that out right there. All right, let's do this, guys. So today's presentation is sound frequency and the extraterrestrial connection. And to be more specific, it's more about quantum physics and talking about what is going on right now, in the mainstream in regards to the UFO disclosure and how we can tie that into the whole realization that we're subatomic beings and that we live in a quantum world, and what our understanding of quantum physics and technology is making us realize is happening when we see these UFO sightings, and also when we speculate about what we can possibly achieve in the future, right? So this is a completely redone past presentation that was specifically on quantum physics, but now we're taking more of an ET space travel approach to it. So what we're going to cover today is the following. Consciousness, spirituality, extraterrestrials, and more can all be explained scientifically through quantum physics. Religion and science are now merging. Eastern and Western philosophy and medication need to work together to cure all illness. The other two, I kind of shifted. I'm going to pass this slide. I'm going to skip over this slide because I actually shifted this presentation to include more than that's there. So we'll just get into that in a bit. But the reason why I even started doing presentations on sound and vibration is the following. This quote really says it all. And I've done many presentations on sound and frequency, and I almost always start it with the following two quotes. This one goes like this. The forms of snowflakes and faces of flowers may take on this shape because they respond to some sound in nature. Likewise, it is possible that crystals, plants, and human beings may be in some way music that has taken on visible form. I like this quote because it truly says everything about the fact that we're all vibration and frequency. And just by the realization that we're all vibration and frequency really shifts our perspective on how we can navigate in this reality. Here's another quote by Nikola Tesla. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. I've always loved to talk about sound and vibration because it literally is all that is, where everything that is physical and non-physical is frequency. So you can almost have a conversation about any topic and include the whole concept of sound and vibration within it. So before we get started into the meat of this presentation, here are some universal ground facts. And these are what we have not only understood spiritually, but we've also understood scientifically now, and believe that we have enough evidence to prove that this is actually real. So the first one is we are vibratory energy beings. Yes, We are all subatomic beings and we vibrate. Our brains produce electricity. Yes, that's true. You have a type of acid in your brain. It forms an electrical current. That electrical current travels down your spine to all your organs, and it creates, it basically pumps and fuels your body. Vibration and frequency is measured in hertz. That's how we're measuring it in this day and age. 1 hertz will be 1 cycle per second. 100 hertz, 100 times per second. The universe is singing. This is something you might be like, well, how is this proven? Well, we'll get to those slides later when we show how we have now translated frequencies of celestial bodies into audible tones and what they sound like. Humans have lived on Earth for hundreds of thousands of years, more than widely accepted. In my mind, that's already been proven. I'm not going to get into the proof on that one. Also, all ancient religions and origin stories talk about sound. The universe is definitely full of frequency. We can only hear and see a limited frequency range, meaning that just like we can only hear certain tones, we can also only see certain frequencies. There's a range of frequencies above and below what we can perceive that we're not able to actually see. There's countless inaudible frequencies around us always. This right here is a graph of our brainwave frequency patterns. These are the different types of frequency waves that our brains can have and what they're called. The first one is gamma wave, which is known as the genius brainwave. The second one is the beta wave, which is kind of what we're in right now because we're having a linear analytical, even though we're talking about very right brain concepts as well, we're having an analytical presentation style left brain thinking format, which allows us to be in a beta state when your eyes are open. Alpha wave is usually when you have your eyes closed and you're still alert, you're in alpha wave. Theta wave is the meditative state, the intuition, flashes inspiration. This is a state that people wish to get to in meditative states in order to do the inner healing or even travel astrally or do some type of spiritual work. And then delta wave is also an even deeper version of that. And you can also travel astrally within the delta wave, but it's usually known as the deep dreamless sleep state. When I first started getting into like all the metaphysical concepts of spirituality, I would hear the term chakra a lot, right? It was just thrown around quite a lot in the spiritual community. I used to think that it was a metaphysical term for an energy center. And I didn't really know if there was any real reality to it. I just knew that we just said that there was these portals in the body, vortices. And then after I started doing research, I found a graph such as this. And to me, it actually proved that the chakra system is actually a reality, and it's a scientific reality. So what occurs is your brain produces an electrical current, and it goes down your nervous system through your brainstem into your spine, and out of your spine to all the corresponding organs. Well, there are actually little areas and holes within the spine, in your spine, that have an outpour of nerves that go to the corresponding organs. And this area is called the neural foramen, right? And this is actually the physical areas for the chakras. So the chakras actually exist. It's the neural foramen, and it's an outpour of nerves. And guess what? Where those nerves go to? So it's taking an electrical current from your brain down your spine into all these organs. And guess where they go to? They go to the corresponding organs that we know each of those chakra points relate to, completely in alignment with ancient texts. The nerve roots travel to reach the rest of your body, and it takes an electrical current, and without the electrical current going through your body, you would not have a signal in your body to keep yourself alive, because you're not dead until you are what? Until you're brain dead, as they say, right? So when you're brain dead, the electrical signal is no longer pumping out of your brain, therefore your organs are no longer able to work. All right, so now that we put that out the way, right there was a very basic summary of some universal facts and some physiology of the human body, scientific physiology of the human body, so we can understand that this is a reality before we jump in deep down the rabbit hole into the quantum world. So here we go, quantum world, extraterrestrials, and space travel. Firstly, what is quantum physics? Well, quantum mechanics, also known as quantum physics or quantum theory, is a fundamental branch of physics that deals with attempting to define and understand the subatomic world. The origin, major contributions being Max Planck's 1900s proposal that energy is made up of smaller units called quanta. And what is metaphysics? Metaphysics is the branch of philosophy that deals with the first principles of things, including abstract concepts such as being, knowing, substance, cause, identity, time, vibration, and space. The origin of this is meta, meaning the word beyond, which refers to the title given to a compilation of Aristotle's work on the subject. Because they follow Aristotle's physics, the work together took the name metaphysics. So both of these disciplines are based on the premises of vibration and frequency. Meditation and metaphysics physical practices are designed to harmonize your vibration. Those that have obtained enlightenment, right, or spiritual awakening have in essence shifted their vibratory frequency. That's the metaphysics connection. So meta is the basis of all ensuing philosophy. Quantum, however, is a way of attempting to scientifically understand how the universe works. So metaphysics is almost the philosophy behind the subatomic world, and quantum physics is the mathematics behind the subatomic world. But they're both the same thing, just looking at it from different angles and with different terms. To me, metaphysics is metaphorical quantum physics because it's the same thing as quantum physics, except we're using a metaphorical term to explain what we can now explain scientifically. And here's a graph that I created quite a few years ago to give you kind of an example of that. We have the quantum term, which is singularity. We have the metaphysics term, which is oneness. We have the quantum term, quantum field, metaphysics, consciousness, quantum term, electromagnetic field, metaphysical term, aura, right? It's the same exact thing. Quantum physics, wave, metaphysics, vibration, quantum physics, dimension, metaphysics, realm, right? And we even have the paradox there. So these are, if not almost exactly the same, have many, many crossovers in regards to the fact that they're both attempting to explore the same kind of concepts. Even time and space, right? Quantum physics, bending space-time. Non-locality now. So now a component of quantum physics. The ability of objects to instantaneously know about each other's state, even when separated by large distances, potentially even billions of light years, almost as if the universe at large instantaneously arranges its particles in anticipation of future events. This contradicts Einstein's theory that nothing can go faster than the speed of light, since this form of communication is instant, proves what ancient scriptures, spiritual scriptures, have been saying. So let's pause here for a second and see what this is talking about. So non-locality, the ability of objects to instantaneously know about each other's state, right? So you could be a billion light years away from me, right? But within one moment, you're able to understand the exact same data as where I'm at. What does this do right here? Just the understanding of that reality existing. What are the questions that arise from it, right? So a question would be, well, if we don't need to use light in order, well, first of all, how does it happen, right? How is everything known everywhere? If something can be so far away but can understand and know exactly what's going on in this moment somewhere else, does that mean this is all an illusion and it's computer programming, like an organic computer program maybe, where there's data everywhere, and from every single point within this construct of this program, we're able to extract data of all that is, some people call it the Akashic records, and we're able to understand it. But also, how does this connect to the non-locality of being able to transport your consciousness from one area to another area? So now we're getting into concepts such as space travel, or instantaneously manifesting somewhere, or even teleportation. How do we send our consciousness from one place to another place without having the limitation of distance? Okay, so as I said, this contradicts Einstein's theory because he did believe that nothing could go faster than the speed of light. But now we're realizing that things can go faster than the speed of light, and quantum computing is a great example of this actually, because regular supercomputers, something that it takes a regular supercomputer around 1,000 years to basically compute, a quantum computer can do it in a matter of moments, right? So what is happening is that instead of having to go through the linear process of computing things over and over and over until we figure something out, we've now tapped into the ability of understanding information in moments that should take forever, including traveling at long distances. Here is the image to compare the metaphysic term of aura and the electromagnetic field. So we're all made out of subatomic particles. So is our planet Earth. So is our body. So is the table in front of me, the computer. Everything has made of subatomic particles. These subatomic particles vibrate. These vibrations and subatomic particles create a field of energy around us, just like an atom does, just like a subatomic particle does, just like your human body does. It creates its own electromagnetic field, just like every single planet and celestial body in the universe. As you can see here, here is an image of Earth's electromagnetic field. So we all have these electromagnetic fields, and the aura, even though been used as a spiritual term, is just basically explaining the fact that we have our own electromagnetic fields, and through vibration technology modalities, we're able to shift and expand that. And I'll stop that video there, but basically showing that Earth has an electromagnetic field, and it's also in alignment with harmonics, and it beats in rhythm like a drum. And just like Rob had mentioned earlier, how not only is everything connecting to this ancient wisdom of how it becomes part of the Earth, but it also resonates harmonics and frequency. Just goes to show how we're also part of the Earth, and we're also vibration and frequency. And then the Earth is also adhering to some sort of rhythm within the universe. I read an article on physics.org, not too long ago, and it was also saying that it looked like Earth was adhering to some sort of pattern that attracts cataclysmic disasters. Okay, realize what they just said there. Adhering to some sort of pattern that attracts cataclysmic disasters. So you know, every 13,000 years, some say that there's the cataclysm on Earth. The Hopi said that we've destroyed the Earth in 4 different ways: earth, wind, fire, and water. Now it's the ether phase, and it's recycling over and over. And so they're realizing that something is going on in regards to the pattern of the way the Earth is traveling throughout the galaxy, that is actually creating and manifesting literally these type of disasters that are having a recycling reset phase on the Earth. So scientific research has found that the aura is an electromagnetic field of energy that extends around our body around 4 to 5 feet. The aura represents your physical, mental, emotional, as well as spiritual energies. Also connects all subtle bodies and acts like a shield protecting the human vessel and absorbing specific energies. So could the Earth's electromagnetic field represent its physical, mental, and emotional aura? If Earth is a sentient being, does it also have an aura? Science and religion have been, you know, we're in the age now where science and religion has been separated for quite some time. But I don't like to say religion, let's say spirituality, right? Science and spirituality. In the ancient times, thousands of years ago, it was one and the same. Even in the Greek times of Pythagoras, they really concentrated on that similarity. But then it continued being the same for thousands of years of devolution into a darker age of humanity. And as it was the same then, it was actually kind of looked as and then it was actually separated, and everything became dictated by the church and basically religious organizations, and all the evidence that was coming out that was showing that the universe could be much different than what we've been told by our religious institutes was kind of either hidden away, or the people that brought this information out were persecuted or even killed. But now in this age where we're discovering so much scientifically, there seems to be a merging of ancient spiritual wisdom with physics and the whole realm of sound and vibration. Science and religion are separate and have been at odds with each other for quite some time. Science in today's world is based on Newtonian physics. Newtonian physics doesn't actually synchronize with quantum physics, because in Newtonian physics, well, in subatomic world, in quantum physics, in the subatomic world, particles are acting extremely erratically, and aren't able to be predicted like they are within the Newtonian world. So subatomic particles act in ways that are confusing us, that we can't actually fathom why it's actually happening. Whereas in the Newtonian world, everything follows Newtonian's physics and all the laws that he outlined, right? So, but the thing is, that doesn't make sense, because the subatomic world is the actual building blocks for the Newtonian world. If it wasn't for the subatomic world, the Newtonian world would not exist. So how is it that the subatomic physics doesn't match up with the Newtonian physics if it's the building blocks for that, right? So that's where the paradox is, and that's what has confused many people along this journey of awakening to the subatomic world. So to me, this actually symbolizes that this is kind of an illusion, right? Like we've pierced through the veil here. The only thing that exists are frequencies, and our perception is the dream, or a very advanced virtual reality, which then goes into, if that is the case, what forms of space travel are we able to cultivate, and also the beings that are visiting us are able to do, right? Whether they're here on the planet, whether they're traveling interdimensionally or extraterrestrial from another planet, what are the types of technologies that are being utilized to get here? Because obviously, as spoke about right before I got into this presentation, that if we have the limitation of the speed of light, it would take civilization so many years in order to get here, and might not be worth the while to do that. But if they were able to travel through wormholes, or bend space-time somehow, or have some other type of advanced understanding of the subatomic world, even bilocate and or non-locality, and then move from one place to another place instantaneously, right? Like in, for example, the spore drive in the Star Trek Discovery, which is the new Star Trek that just came out. Well, it came out a couple years ago, but it's really awesome. They have this spore drive that connects to the mycelium network, which is the mushroom fungi network of the whole entire universe, that uses the fungi in order to transfer the whole entire spacecraft to another part in the universe just instantaneously, rather than having to go through subspace. And it's very interesting because we have recently discovered that there's a huge mycelium network of spores all over the universe, and it seems to travel from planet to planet. And it's even speculated that that basically spores from mycelium could actually be what travels all over the universe and brings life to other planets. So researchers at the Weizmann Institute of Science have conducted an experiment demonstrating how a beam of electrons is affected by the act of being observed. The experiment revealed that the greater the amount of watching, the greater the observer's influence on what actually takes place. A position of a particle at the quantum state cannot be determined unless a measurement, which is an observation of its position, is made. So the very act of watching something within these subatomic experiments affects the reality, that it acts differently upon being observed. The very act of watching, the observer affects the observed reality. What does that mean, right? So if we are not looking at it, it will behave one way. If we're looking at it, it will behave another way, right? What does that mean for humanity? Well, again, it looks like we've just pierced through some sort of illusion, some sort of veil, that even though on the Newtonian world, on the atomic world, that we can see everything as physical and consistent, the building blocks of what it's made out of are only acting upon observation, right? And this ties into, like, not to go deep into explanation here, but this is kind of like a Truman Show realization over here, that by setting our intent and observation, reality manifests. And without intent and observation, it's just frequency. When being observed, the electrons would bounce off the barrier. When not observed, the electrons would act as waves and make it through the barrier, acting as a wave and a particle at the exact same time. When not observed, the electron would exist in two locations simultaneously, right? So a lot of different things going on there. And all this is us realizing the theories of a technology that we don't quite understand yet, but we're seeing occur when we have this whole UFO sighting situation going on around the world, right? So let's talk about the whole ATIP program for a second. 2004 to whenever they closed it down, I think it was 2017 or something like that. They had all these cases within the UAP report, around 144 cases. And if you don't know what I'm talking about the UFO report that just came out this past month, that was asked to be released in the COVID relief bill that I think took place in November of last year, that they asked for the UFOs, the ATIP program, to basically release all the information that they had in regards to this. There were two documents released. One was given to the Congress for the public, and that was for us, right? It was just less than 10 pieces of paper. And then there was a more in-depth one that was given to Congress that was classified. And in there, it was saying that these, and not only in there, but also other people that have come out and spoke about this that work for the program, have said that these craft were acting in a way that we know, that we think is impossible, but we know is possible because we've been observing it through our experiments of quantum physics. So we've been experimenting with quantum physics, and we've been seeing all of these amazing things happen. And now all of a sudden, there are all these sightings that are doing the things that we are only theorizing is possible. That is what is the conventional thing right there. So when you see all these craft, it's not like, oh, they're doing something impossible. It's like, oh, they're doing something that we're actually realizing is possible, but we haven't really figured out how to do it yet. Well, that's what they're telling us. So what does this mean? A new form of space travel for humans. How are ETs coming to Earth, as I just explained? And the outdated theory that we are limited by the speed of light. The universe may actually be holographic in nature. Not only are we made out of subatomic particles, but it seems that these subatomic particles are vibrating in and out of reality, phasing in and out, just like a hologram, just like a hologram does. And since we're phasing in and out of reality, we can only speculate that we are literally shifting in and out of reality always, but we only see ourselves as physically remaining here all the time. So not only that, we're also realizing that our whole ability to perceive how reality really is extremely limited compared to, compared to what is actually out there and what we really are. Bilocation is occurring on the subatomic world. So on the subatomic world, a particle can exist in two locations simultaneously. What does that mean? Well, that's called bilocation. That's when, I don't know if anybody's ever made this joke before, but I have, that like, I wish I could bilocate and duplicate myself so I can get more stuff done, right? And that bilocation is being in two places at once. And then I'm kidding around by saying, like, I wish I was in two places at once so I could be doing twice the things that I'm doing. But we've actually achieved bilocation on the subatomic world. So all of these different components that could actually help shift our future and are truly paradigm shifting occurrences and technologies can come out, we've actually been able to manifest in the subatomic world. And now, in order to do it on a larger scale, we need to figure out how we can bring that out into the larger scale world. Just yesterday, I watched something on the Large Hadron Collider in CERN, and they were talking about how, in order to be able to create some similar occurrences on the Newtonian level, right, on the atomic level, that they would have to create a hydrogen collider the size of our solar system. Okay, so firstly, that goes to show what kind of effort is needed with the technology that we're currently told we have in order to duplicate this on such a large scale, right? But then secondly, it also goes to show how limited and linear our technology has been, because I think that there's entire new technologies that can manifest from this, where we're not going to need such to waste so much space in order to do so. And this is just the preliminary phases. We think that we're really advanced right now, but we're just at the beginning phases of a science that is going to completely shift the way we act on this planet, the way we live on this planet, the way we eat on this planet, the way we travel on this planet, everything. Just 2 hours ago, and if you're watching the replay on this, I guess it's more than 2 hours ago. Actually, no, it's like 4 hours ago. Virgin Galactic, Richard Branson just went to space as the first citizen craft into space. That just happened, right? In about a week, Jeff Bezos is doing it. Then Elon Musk is right after it. Not giving them any credit, for any, like, they're doing what they're doing. I'm not saying that they're either good or bad. I'm just trying to tell you that we're now at a state where humans are publicly and openly going to be transported to space. We are in a universe that is life all over. There's UFOs and craft observing us. There are beings that are waiting for us to reach certain levels of technology and awareness so that we can start the interaction process. As humans start going out into space, and this is kind of a tangent, but it's still connected. As humans start going off into space and are able to perceive it for themselves, just like almost every astronaut that's been up there, they're going to see something. Not only do we have this technology here, not only is it being used by black budget programs, not only do we actually have UFOs and ETs interacting already doing it, but we've already taken citizens now to space. And this is all happening. A lot of space awareness is happening in the last year to 2 years and into the next year or and a half from now. And then after that is supposed to be the first manned trip to Mars, right? So we have technology that's beyond that, all that right now. And I got a feeling that we've been on Mars already. But what I'm showing you is what they're drip disclosing and what we're moving towards is only more of this technology coming out. And if we get to it, I'll show you the graph at the end of this that shows you the exponential increase of technology in our society and how it's inevitable that we're going to be reaching these heights in the near future. So there's also the double slit experiment here. Same as before. Fundamental constitutions of matter. Electrons, protons, etc. can have two distinct states of existence, particle and wave form. So the particle representation of matter gives the impression that something exists at a particular point in space-time. So it actually exists within space-time. The wave representation asserts an uncertainty of location until the entity is observed. So if you're observing it, it becomes a particle that exists within this 3D construct or 4D construct that it actually exists within space-time. But if not, it's just a wave, and until you observe it, it doesn't manifest within this reality, this dimension. The more and more I research this, the more I realize this is directly related to exactly how computers operate and hard drives and data stored in that format. So my question is, if a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound? Well, if the tree is a subatomic tree, no, it doesn't, right? So on the subatomic world, if you're not observing it, technically it doesn't do that. So does the world we live in really exist, in quotations, when we aren't looking, or is it all just frequency all the time? Well, I would say both, right? As we can see here, that we exist as a particle and a wave at the same time. I would say we also both. And that leads me to the universal paradox. And if you watch any of my other presentations, you know how much I love talking about the paradox. And the whole concept is that the universe, multiverse, existence, dimensions, reality, all exist on a paradox. What is one of the most fundamental paradoxes? Well, we are made of subatomic particles, but we live in a Newtonian world, and Newtonian physics and subatomic physics contradict each other. Paradox. The universe is infinite, but also finite. Well, outside something, there's got to be something else. Outside one thing, that everything needs to end. Well, if the universe is always expanding, that means it must be finite, and it's expanding into infinity. But it's also already infinite. Paradox. Time exists, but it also doesn't exist. You know, new sciences come out that time moves different speeds for everyone. When you go outside of our atmosphere, time is a completely different construct. Time is a linear construct between our distance between Earth and our sun. We even measure our time to get to other planets based on that construct, right? It is a construct for sure. And also, we've changed and manipulated our time so much, right? That it exists and it also doesn't. We are solid beings, yet we're also vibrating. Just like I showed you earlier, that you and I are subatomic particles waving frequencies, but we're also solid beings that we cannot pass through. Even though your vibration, technically I should be able to walk through you, right? You're just frequency. So the universe exists within a paradox. And so did, this paradox of reality in nature, I used to really try to contemplate and figure out what it meant. But the more I started exploring it, the more I realized it was about just accepting that paradox and moving forward, because our brains are literally not entirely wired to accept the paradox. It kind of gets on overdrive, because a paradox means that they should not work together. It means it's paradoxical to us. But that just goes to show how limited our perception is, because obviously that is how it is operating. But the fact that we can understand and accept that entirely goes to show that there must be some sort of frequency limitation within us to not understand that concept. Now we're transitioning here into dimensions. And there's just going to be 2 slides here to just break down kind of what dimensions are. And this is important as well, because this connects to definitely extraterrestrial beings, interdimensional beings, also other dimensions of Earth, and what is a dimension and how they're created, right? So what are dimensions? The world, as we know it, has 3 dimensions of space: length, width, depth, and 1-dimensional time, which is the 4th dimension. Physicists, mathematicians, and spiritualists believe in the possibility that many more dimensions do exist. According to string theory, the physical universe operates within 10 dimensions. That's what string theory believes. I believe that we exist within 12 dimensions, and then there's a 13th dimension, which is the void. But to be a little clearer about what we mean about dimensions is because there are a lot of different ways to use that term. It's used broadly. It's used for many overlapping and seemingly independent concepts: parallel dimensions, physical and spiritual dimensions, dimensions in the galaxy, a realm of no dimension, the void, dimension within a dimension. So you can see here, all these are different kinds of concepts. Also, they probably overlap in many cases, but they're also called dimensions, right? Parallel dimension, many different versions of you, parallel infinite versions of you in different dimensions. Physical dimensions, well, within this construct of this matrix, if you will, or on this planet, there are multiple physical forms that you can exist within this planet, and maybe the planet also exists in those higher dimensions, and you can physically live in those as well. Spiritual dimensions, realms of pure energy. So it's important to realize that these concepts and titles may have been spiritually informed, right, from an ancient past, but are also human constructs based on our perception and unique experience on Earth. So the question is, why is this important? And I have this a few times within this entire presentation here, just to talk about, what's the importance of what we're discovering right now. Quantum physics is the bridge that is needed to bring the sciences and spiritual traditions together. It is a science where all religion was derived, the subatomic world. You go to Buddhism, you go to ancient Vedic texts, they're talking about the subatomic particles. In Buddhism, there's a term called kalapas. Kalapas. What does kalapas mean? It means subatomic world, right? So this is ancient wisdom. The universal language is mathematics, right? We've been taught that since we're very young, I guess, because I was taught that when I was a child. And the mathematical intervals are the same for music. So the universal language is also music. So music and math have the same mathematical intervals. So the universal language is also math, but it's also music. And math is really the linear component of it all. And then we have the music, which is the creative, secular component of it. When we talk about science and frequency, we have to talk about Pythagoras and give him some credit. Most of us know who Pythagoras is. He was a Greek philosopher, was the father of music theory in the West. The Pythagoras Mystery School on the island of Crotona taught the use of flute and lyre as the primary healing instrument. With his monochord, Pythagoras was able to unravel the mysteries of musical intervals. We know him as the father of geometry. If it wasn't for Pythagoras, many different equations that were needed in order to create society that was used over thousands of years, including by the stonemasons, would not have come into fruition. But Pythagoras, a little bit about his story, and I'm going to actually do a whole presentation at one point. It'll probably be an hour to 2 hour presentation just on Pythagoras. But he went to Egypt for 10 years and was initiated into many different schools. He was provided with ancient advanced awareness from celestial beings. So in these mystery schools, the Egyptians were very open to outsiders actually coming in, and Pythagoras, they welcomed him with open arms and initiated him into some teachings that even Egyptian citizens weren't even allowed to get. So he successfully connected geometry, mathematics to music theory, thereby founding the Western musical scale. Pythagoras considered that music contributed greatly to health. He called his method musical medicine. To the accompaniment of Pythagoras, his followers would sing in unison certain chants. At times, his disciples employed music as medicine, with certain melodies composed to cure the passions of the psyche, anger, and aggression. And he was also, as I said, the founder of geometry. Just give me one moment here, guys. I'm just going to take a 30-second break just to grab some water. I'm going to be right back. All right. So Pythagoras, he didn't set out just to create geometry, right? All the linear sciences that came from Pythagoras, it doesn't seem like that was his initial intent. His initial intent was to figure out what kind of frequencies and melodies would help shift the human psyche, right? He was an experimenter in the realm of sound and vibration. But through that awareness and through that exploration, geometry came about. Pythagoras theorized that all things have frequency and even each planet has its own vibration. He called the sound that each of these bodies would make the music of the spheres. And here are some videos. I'm just going to play 30 seconds of each of these videos. And basically, Pythagoras is right. Each of these celestial bodies do make a sound and frequency. And as I said in the first couple of slides, the universe is singing. Well, now we're able to take technology and utilize it to see what frequencies are being emanated and translate that into sound. And that has been what has been done. And this is the sound of the moon right here. Sound of Jupiter. Sometimes I use these sounds to meditate. Here is the sound of Saturn. Very eerie. Kind of like how you would expect the sound to be, right? So the celestial bodies are making sounds, so is the Earth, so are human beings, so are star beings, so are extraterrestrials, so is spacecraft, right? We all have our own frequency, and not all of those sounds are audible, especially since we can only perceive a certain hertz vibrational frequency range when it comes to what we hear. As I was exploring through all this information, I came up with this kind of basic equation here. The universal language is quantum physics, right? Because it's the subatomic world. The subatomic world is really what makes everything up. So that equals the mathematics of vibration, music frequency, and sound of the universe. So quantum physics is really the mathematics of vibration and frequency of all that is. All right, so now we get into the whole extraterrestrial frequency connection. How does this relate? What does extraterrestrials and frequency have to do, right? I wrote an article with each other. I wrote an article a few years ago saying, what does UFOs, I think it was, what does extraterrestrials have to do with meditation? Or it might have been, what does extraterrestrials have to do with meditation? And my answer is, it was, a long article, but the premise of it all was that it's a frequency game, right? What shifts your frequency and vibration? What are some tools and modalities on the earth that help with that? What harmonizes your vibration to be at a harmonic frequency range where you're able to perceive extraterrestrial life? And that would be modalities such as meditation. There's thousands of meditation types. Meditation isn't just sitting in one place. There's all types of ways that you can be meditative. There's even food. So that whole article was really talking about why spirituality, spiritual communities seem to be the ones that gravitate towards the UFO disclosure information the most, right? There are those that are into the nuts and bolts exclusively, but you see a lot of people into UFOs and ETs happen to go into the spiritual avenue. And why is that? And the answer is it's a frequency game. So why don't we see extraterrestrials around us everywhere, right? There are countless, at this point in my life, I believe there are countless extraterrestrials and interdimensional beings interacting with our reality all the time. Outside of planet, UFOs, spacecraft, so much going on, and most of it we can't even perceive. We do not see them due to a vibratory shift or a collective frequency. Just recently, Neil deGrasse Tyson was on for a second time on Joe Rogan's podcast, like 2 weeks ago. And he was asking, well, he was an unhealthy skeptic, is Neil deGrasse Tyson, a very unhealthy skeptic because he's completely delusional to a lot of components. He was saying that, well, first of all, how would they get here, right? Going with the whole they can travel in the speed of light thing. And then he would say, why can't we see them? And why aren't they landing on the White House lawn? And why is it that we don't have good pictures of them, images, and all that stuff, right? Well, there's a very simple answer. It's a frequency game. We live in a world of vibration and frequencies. We're very limited in the range of frequencies we can perceive. These beings and starships vibrate at frequencies where they don't have to be seen by us, right? And unless they want to be. So the reason why is we may have UFOs and craft everywhere, but we're not able to actually perceive them. Could be as simple as the fact that they don't want to be seen and they have technology that can shift out of vibrational frequency range so that they can't be seen. And if you even look at whistleblower testimony, experiencers, channelers, that is what we kind of get. And that's the consensus, is it is vibration and frequency. Extraterrestrials and interdimensionals often vibrate at frequencies that are not perceivable to all of our senses, but some of them, some people hear things. That could be something as well, where you're able to utilize one sense in particular in order to tap into that frequency. In order to communicate and find extraterrestrial life in the universe, the mainstream uses radio waves. We send data through radio waves. You might think that radio waves might be an outdated form of communication since we have so many other types that have evolved since then. But the reason why we actually use radio waves to contact ETs is because they're one of the few frequencies that actually can pass through rock, like planets, debris, asteroids, and all those things, and space dust on the way. They don't get stopped by it, they can actually pass through it. So it's believed that if there's extraterrestrial life out there that are looking to see if there's anyone out there as well, that they're probably going to utilize radio frequencies and pick those up because they know that that type of frequency is able to pass through all these celestial bodies. Radio waves are a form of electromagnetic radiation, and thus they move at the speed of light. The speed of light is less than 300,000 kilometers per second. So radio waves also travel very fast, right? Basically. So that's why it's used as well. It is assumed that extraterrestrial civilizations would be using these. Will we start seeing ETs in our lifetime? And it's important to say, when we talk about ETs, we're talking about multiple things. There's interdimensionals, right? Which means beings that are from different dimensions or dimensions between dimensions. And there's ultra-terrestrials. Ultra-terrestrials are beings that are on our planet that evolved past the conscious level that we are, and they still live on our planet. Maybe we can't perceive them. Maybe they're living under Earth, in hollow Earth. So will we be able to see them in our lifetimes? Through my research, through the fact that I do what I do in Portal to Ascension and understanding the cycles of time, we are definitely shifting into another octave of existence. And when we shift from one octave to another octave, there's sometimes a lot of chaos, confusion, and disharmony before we actually have the full transition. So we're in that phase right now, shifting into it. Many cultures have prophesied the different time periods for this shift. So we're moving into a reality where the frequency on Earth will be less dense, allowing us to coexist with other realities, eventually allowing for a world where we have open contact, communication, interaction, and being able to see and perceive extraterrestrial, interdimensional, ultra-terrestrial life. It's in our future if we so choose to take the mission. And I feel that we're on the upward trajectory to get to that point. The science backs that this is potentially a reality that does exist. And the spiritual texts have been talking about this for thousands of years. So as these cycles are shifting and the veils thin, the veils are literally thinning so that we're able to reach these levels of consciousness at an easier rate. But before we do that, we have a lot of crap to go through and to experience, or to just say transmute a lot of our past karma, or whatever you want to call it, experiences, lessons that we haven't quite achieved yet or mastered. We're in that phase right now. And as we go through that phase, we can have the opportunity to create this world where we have this interaction with ET. And that's what I'm really excited for, and partly one of the driving forces for what I do. I would love to be in a world where we can have this open intergalactic community and just understand our nature and our purpose in the universe on a level that hasn't been taught to us. In the future, And we're in the closing. We're almost done here with this presentation. But I wanted to throw in a few different things that we're seeing that is quite possibly going to exist in our near future. And we've gone through some of them as we're doing this presentation. But one of them that I'm really intrigued to explore even more and see what manifests from it would be definitely be bilocation, which is a form of teleportation. Bilocation is basically you being in two places at once. Teleportation is you transferring from one place into another place. Quantum position shows evidence that waves occupy multiple places in space at once, and we're all made out of waves, and has been demonstrated in small particles, subatomic world. As of 2019, scientists have been able to do the same thing with large chunks of physical matter. So this is kind of breaking news actually. This only happened 2 years ago. As I said earlier, that we were doing it on the subatomic world. Well, as of 2019, we're now able to do it with a bigger chunk of matter. So what we're seeing spacecraft do that are like huge motherships, we're able to do now with a chunk of physical matter. Physicists have scaled up their experiments demonstrating quantum superpositioning using larger and larger particles. Now, in a paper published September 23rd in 2019, an international team of researchers has caused a molecule made up of 2,000 atoms to occupy two places at the same time. I got to read that again for you guys. An international team of researchers has caused a molecule made up of 2,000 atoms to occupy two places at the same time by location. The particle was 25,000 times the mass of a single hydrogen atom and is a start in the journey to discover how we can exist in two places at once. Some whistleblowers say advanced versions of this technology already exist. This makes sense in regards to the theory that there are multiple forms of self existing in parallel dimensions. Are we able to like create multiple versions of ourselves within this dimension? Because we already theorized that multiple versions of ourselves exist in parallel dimensions. Are we now uncovering the deepest intricacies of how dimensions exist and how we live in this reality? Now, this video right here, I'm going to show you just really quick, is just another example of sound and vibration technology. And this one is a miniature version of a tractor beam, just like we see in Star Wars and other space shows and movies. And this is from 2016. So just imagine, first of all, if this technology was taken black budget, what they've probably done with it. I'm sure that they have this on an advanced scale already, but these are the technologies that people are now discovering. The regular citizens of the world are able to manifest and create just because we're understanding the quantum world even more. So, by the way, this video is showing people how to make it. So they didn't just make it; they actually released the blueprints on how to make this. I'm going to close off on these slides here, make sure. Yep. Okay, so what is it all about? What does the future hold for us? What can we possibly create in our future with using this technology and this understanding of the subatomic world and quantum physics? Well, we can definitely cure many illnesses and diseases on a wide level. We're understanding now that with frequency and vibration, we're able to put all types of things into remission. Technology to transport physical matter to other parts of Earth and space. So us able to go to another place within the universe without having to travel a linear distance to get there. Traveling faster than the speed of light, bending space-time, reaching altered states of consciousness and gaining otherworldly experiences using frequency and body technology. Communicating with extraterrestrials, interdimensional beings. In my ancient history sound presentation, I show how maybe sound frequency was used in the Great Pyramid and in other ancient structures to possibly shift the consciousness of the individual to be able to communicate with the star beings. Transferring data instantaneously across the galaxy and the universe, which we're already doing on Earth through quantum computing. New advanced forms of transportation, harnessing energy from the vacuum. Major funding to these projects have been scarce until now. We could have free and sustainable energy. We can have conscious and intentional music using harmonic frequencies. We'll have a revolutionary understanding of our universe and the nature of reality. We can redefine how we conduct ourselves between nations and socioeconomically. We can cure poverty. Everybody can have a roof over their head, an intricate understanding of what it means to be human living within our physical bodies. So the applications are infinite. All things are sound and vibration. That when we understand that and realize that, we can even extend our lives using sound and frequency. But that would even go down to the whole concept of if we create harmony within our bodies anyway, we can have a longer life. And then using frequency technology or harnessing modalities that utilize the subatomic world, meditative practices, we can actually extend our lifespans as well. So the future can be extremely beautiful, and we can shift the world and really create peace and heaven on earth. And what I've been loving saying lately is like, we have the technology, the education, the know-how, the systems, all in place to create beautiful paradise on earth, but we haven't. The reason why is that a lot of these structures, old paradigm structures from even from the Roman age 2000 years ago, are still implemented in society and are on their way out. They're no longer serving us, right? And they're not serving us in a way where they're actually inhibiting our progress at this point. So there's only a certain amount of time that we can go through that we're completely inhibited by progress because of these limitations that we've imposed on ourselves. So as we shift through those and move out of them, these technologies will really shift the world. And when we look at money from a different aspect, because a lot of these technologies aren't released because people want to milk every single product line and don't want to just give you the solutions and the answers, especially when it comes to frequency technology healing illnesses and sicknesses. By giving this answer, they won't be able to make money on it. A great example is part of the reason why UFOs haven't been disclosed at an earlier time would be also because many of these craft are not using petrol engines to get to the Earth, right? As soon as we realize this is real, and then we start asking the questions of how did they get here, many of the societal structures, organized religion, the oil industry, the chemical industry, the pharmaceutical industry, all of these organizations that have a chokehold on the planet are going to have to eventually phase out. In the near future, we will see a complete terraforming of our planet if we continue down the trajectory we are on. It is inevitable. Special interests, corporations, and corrupt governments would have to stay in a reality that they can control. However, the science does not lie, and with so many independent inventions and discoveries, it's only a matter of time. It's time to fund these technologies and reroute the money into creating a sustainable future. And that is it. I'm just going to do this last graph here just to show you. So this graph is the trajectory of our technology since the 1400s, and you can kind of just see here how we went exponential, right? And if you just follow this graph, like when we hit just actually before like 1950, I guess, between 1900 and 1950 is really when we went exponential, and now we're just like skyrocketing and we're not stopping. So the more we're understanding, the more we're discovering, the more we're just accelerating into the future. So this graph right here and all the information that I've shared with you really makes me hopeful for an amazing world that we can really create that we're going to have technology and understanding of ourselves and the nature of reality that we can't even fathom in this moment. And that's it for me. Thank you so much, everybody.
That was absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. Thank you so much. Now I'm going to leave you in the good hands of Omar for a few moments, and then I'll be back up.
Okay.
What a great presentation there, bro.
Thank you.
Really liked that, and I resonated with a lot of what you were saying, especially towards the end. Kind of reminded me of what I was saying about this shift of going into the sixth root race and this paradigm shift that's happening. Right, so that was pretty cool on how that really connected. Now, earlier on, you were saying the sound frequency, the sound vibration when you were playing the sounds off the planets.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I've got a video like that on my channel where I have every single planet from their sound vibration, and when you listen to all of the planets, going from the sun all the way out to Pluto, right? There's one planet that has this really, really distinct vibration or frequency to it, which is Saturn. Right now, Saturn. When you listen to Saturn, it sounds like like a haunted house. When you go into a haunted house and they're playing that haunted music. Right, it kind of sounds like that. Now I'm wondering, because of the cubicle thinking that we're involved in, right? Live inside the cube, think inside the cube, and all the religions, how they're connected to the cube. And now the vibration that's coming off of Saturn, do you think that somehow, some way, someone or something is harnessing that vibration or that frequency and emitting it onto the planet, and really, messing around with our own frequency and, like canceling it out, right? So that we're kind of stuck into that frequency thinking, that cubicle thinking.
Yeah, I don't know if it's happening physically, like there's an actual frequency that they're harnessing and putting here, or if it's more of like a metaphorical concept. But I do feel that there is a frequency from Saturn that is being utilized for somehow, right? Even the fact that there's like even Richard Hoagland did a presentation where he said that he showed images of an outpost on Saturn's rings, and that could have actually been somebody harnessing the energy of Saturn in order using it for a nefarious plan. And we do know that there's a Saturn moon matrix and it's creating this construct on Earth. But as we spoke about when we did our Saturn video a few months ago, that every planet has a positive vibration and a negative vibration. So it could be, because a lot of these elite, what they do is they take the frequency that has an actual positive element to it, and then they hijack it and use it for their own purposes, right? So Saturn has a lot of power, and I think there's a lot of power within its rings too, that I can't even begin to speculate on what is actually going on there. And I don't know how the Saturn moon matrix chokehold that they have on our planet, how that manifests in actual physical occurrence, like what they're actually doing physically in order to take that frequency. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I've hypothesized in the past, and there's a book out there called The Ring Makers of Saturn. I forgot who published it, Norm something or other. I think it was a German guy. And in it, he talks about these electromagnetic shifts that, Cassini actually noticed that when it went to Saturn, and it noticed that the rings were changing from, image to image to image. So Bergenberg, I think his name, something like that. But anyways, he hypothesized that the rings of Saturn are relatively new, and that there's some sort of, I guess we'll call them aliens, extraterrestrials or whatever, that they're harnessing the Saturn's frequency through the rings, right? So he's hypothesized that the rings are probably crystalline based, and some of the moons that we see in the ring system and around Saturn look really artificial as well. Like the Walnut moon, for instance, it has a 15-mile high ridge around the equator going all the way around. It almost looks like somebody took one piece and then took another piece and then just put them on top of each other and welded it. and then there's other ones that look like the Death Star that we see in Star Wars. Now, what he's what he didn't hypothesize, something that I've taken on from him, is that possibly these guys are collecting that frequency via or enhancing it somehow through the ring system and using their moons to transmit that frequency to our moon, and then our moon is transmitting that frequency onto the Earth, possibly using the Black Knight satellite or possibly not, and then giving us that frequency that's causing us to misbehave in the way we are. Now, before I let you answer, I've seen a video not that long ago. It was on Ancient Aliens, where they were talking about a certain frequency, and they showed these mice. And these mice, when they let them go in a maze, they were looking for their cheese, and they were friendly with one another. They did their thing, and then as soon as this frequency was placed upon them, they became very aggressive and started fighting each other, biting each other. They became confused. They couldn't find the cheese. They couldn't make their way through the maze. And then as soon as they lifted that frequency off of them, these mice went back to being normal. So now I'm wondering if the frequency that's coming off of Mars, and then the way that I explained, if that may be possible, if that's how they are, controlling this planet, this, the cubical thinking that we're involved in, because we do know that in historical text, the moon just like suddenly showed up, right? One day it wasn't there, the next day it was, caused deluges and kind of what have you. So I wonder if all of that is like somehow connected.
Yeah, you know what? I think, because I feel that there's enough evidence to suggest that the moon is either artificial or artificially placed, right? I don't like to say the moon is completely artificial, because a lot of people get offended because they think that you mean that if they have a connection to the moon, that they're following some fake thing, right? So it could actually be some organic structure that was moved there, but there are still a lot of anomalies. And on my website, there's one just on the article on the moon where it goes over them. Well, that makes you say that the moon really isn't like any other celestial object. I mean, just the fact that it actually blocks out the sun and gives us a full solar eclipse, whereas no other moon does. That's just one out of many. And just the portion, the fraction of how big the moon is compared to our planet is disproportionate to every other single body that we see there. So there's something going on with the moon. I do feel that a lot of ancient scriptures also suggest that it's been put there and put in place. Some people have said on the dark side of the moon, there's even technology there. I think there's enough evidence to suggest that there's we need to look into that even further, because that could be a potential. Now, Saturn, it's like riddled with anomalies, right?
Yeah.
There's all types of things happening that are so, like, from like the shape of the hexagon, I think it's at the bottom, right? And then the North Pole has something else going on. So it almost looks like a planet machine, a planetary machine mechanism doing some sort of thing. Just take a look at a few of the images and just see what's going on. So to me, what you just outlined actually does make sense. And then you can go back into the whole concept of the Elohim and the seed races, and how the Elohim came here. There are multiple races of beings, and that El literally is the god of Saturn, right?
Yeah.
So even in mythology, when we look at Elohim and how it connects to Saturn, we see that it's the god of Saturn. So there are a lot of questions there in order to back up what you're saying. I don't know exactly what it is, but I definitely do feel that there's some sort of connection with Saturn and the moon occurring on this planet. And it could be to keep us within this 3D dimensional reality, right? In order to maybe just create this matrix for us, so that we're not able to shift out of it so easily.
That false reality.
As time, even Laura Eisenhower said that there's now evidence that the rings of Saturn are starting to dissipate in some areas, right? So maybe that symbolizes a release of control onto our planet, right? So who knows? But it's definitely amazing information to just discuss and talk about,
Another interesting thing that you were talking about earlier was the torus, right? The torus of the human body, the torus of the planets, the torus of the moons, kind of what have you. Now, I know you visited Nazca a couple of years ago. Now, when we look at the torus of the Earth, right, and when we look at the Nazca spider, they both look almost identical. Now, in your opinion, your educated opinion, do you think that the civilization or people that created those glyphs were aware of this sound frequency vibration and the torus on how the Earth would look when the Earth's torus and the gamma rays and kind of were passing through the Earth and would create that shape, and then they mimic that shape onto the ground as petroglyphs?
Yeah. Either they knew about it or their ancestors knew about it and it was passed down. to them. So I do think they had some advanced awareness. But there's actually multiple, civilizations or tribes that created petroglyphs in Peru. But two of the ones that are known the most will be the Nazca people and then the Paracas people.
Mhm.
And so in Nazca, you have the Nazca tribes, but most of the petroglyphs in Nazca are off like regular things that we know, like monkey, person,
Yeah.
things like that. But then if you go to Palpa, which is just right next door, that has like over 1,000 more petroglyphs than Nazca, right? They're almost all on tops of hillsides, right? Like where you can only see it from space. You can't even walk over them really. And they're almost all like hybrid beings of half human, half insectoid beings, right? So my question is what maybe the Palpa were connected to the Paracas people, and the Paracas civilization is where we get the elongated skull people from, right? So I'm thinking that the Palpa lines predate the Nazca lines, like Brian Forrester believes as well, and that whoever that civilization was, the Paracas people, maybe had some sort of advanced awareness that came from whoever their ancestors were. Some people say that they came from the Middle East, and that there were hybrid and extra like humanoid being that existed on the planet, but was earthly humanoid from the Middle East area. Other people think that they were just star beings that came down maybe thousands of years before and became the rulers of the area. But I feel that there's enough evidence to show that there was, when it comes to the Paracas and their petroglyphs, that they had some sort of advanced awareness of the cosmos that maybe tribes that came after them did not know.
Do you think that the Paracas people could be the Atlanteans when they, when they spread across the world, when the destruction was happening? Some ended up in Asia, some in Africa, some in North America.
Well,
do you think the Paracas may have that connection to either Atlantis or even Lemurians prior to that?
Possibly, but what happened when Brian Forrester did the DNA results around 4 or 5 years ago? It came back because these Paracas people, elongated skull people, actually had red hair, right? And red hair was not native to South America. So they did DNA studies on it, and it completely changed. The Alaskan land bridge awareness, it completely shifted that, even though it hasn't been widely accepted for it to change the history books. But it showed that there was an ancient civilization in Peru that had DNA results that came from the Middle East, right? Sumeria, maybe Mesopotamia, maybe like 5,000 BC, right? So, and then if you go to Mesopotamia and the Sumerians, you might have a direct connection to the Anunnaki, right? So I don't know if they're from Atlantis, maybe even earlier before that, because I'm thinking that these beings may have showed up in that area of 4,000, 5,000 BC or 6,000 BC.
See, that also changes the out of Africa theory also, I believe.
Very much so.
And also, when you look at the genetic makeup of people in South America, we've come to learn that they share a lot of their DNA with the Aborigines of Australia, and the Aborigines of Australia are connected to the Lemurians.
Yeah. This is
Right?
wild. This is all crazy stuff, Joe. This is all crazy stuff.
Yeah, same people in India are connected to the Lemurians, especially the Tamil Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
In Sri Lanka, they have a lot of mythological stories that they speak of, saying that at one time they were that they're related to the Lemurian people. Right, so I wonder if that all somehow is connected, because again, we're going into the root races here, and then sub races and branch races, because I'm not, I want to believe that ET kind of somehow helped us, but as I was saying earlier about the Manus and patriarchs and stuff that spiritually came down here and helped guide humans. I wonder if that has anything to do with the consciousness of humans, like when you were talking about being in two places at the same time, right? These Manus and like for instance, like Jesus Christ and Moses and kind of thing, they're almost kind of doing the same thing, where they're coming from the spiritual realm and then coming here into the physical realm, and then existing in two different places and guiding humanity.
That's wild.
Yeah, and I think like it could have been both. That because it's sometimes people say that it was ET and they don't say anything about human ingenuity, in like how amazing they were architectural creations themselves, or they say it was the humans and don't think that it could be aliens because we were smarter than you think we were, right?
No.
But I think it could have been a combination of both. And at certain levels of consciousness, humanity was equal in awareness to different beings.
Yeah,
We would
yeah.
have open contact.
See, I always had the belief that there was more than just one ET interaction. I always said there was like 3 or 4 where we were spread out all across the world, and we never met up, because you have to look at the human itself. Like, we have the Rh negative bloodline, which separates one group altogether. You have another group that live totally in the north in the Arctic, one all the way in the south. You know what I'm saying? So we were separated, not even knowing that we even existed, until we started meeting up and started interbreeding, is when everything else happened. So, I mean, it's part of the course. Plus, panspermia, I think, had a trigger in there also.
Mushrooms.
Well, that was the spores he was talking about. That was
Right,
a
absolutely.
spore field, just like from with the Star Trek drives and things like that.
Yep.
It was such wild content.
Big connections there. I mean, and this is why I tell people, especially our listeners, and that even though we talk about UFOs and we talk about aliens and we talk about other things, that there is a connection no matter what you're displacing or talking about. Everything is related to one thing or another. Eventually it comes full circle. We just got to figure that part out.
Earlier when you were talking about, Neil, about the instantaneous travel, the quantum entanglement, there's a I'm sure you know of him, Pharaoh Onus, from the later period. It's said that he used the pyramid to instantly travel to the Orion Nebula, to whatever planet that he went to, and he did that a few times. Now I'm wondering, like you were saying, the speed of light is really archaic, and it doesn't really make sense if somebody, is in Andromeda and they want to travel here to the Milky Way. It's going to take them 40,000 years to get here. It's not really worth the time. Now, if Onus was able to travel between Earth and the Orion Nebula on an instantaneous level, do you think that within the UFOs, they may be using some sort of the pyramidal technology that we have here on the planet, or they might be using the power of thought to travel, kind of like the Mysonial drive that you were talking about, right, where they go from one spot to another spot? Now I'm wondering if they have some technology like that, where they're, where they instruct their craft via thought that, hey, I'm over here in Andromeda and I need to get to Mars. And they just sit there and they think about it, and instantaneously that gets transferred into the UFO, and the UFO instantly just places itself to to Mars, or even creates like a quantum entanglement of itself, and with the inhabitants of the UFO to come here, and then they're at 2 places at the same time, where they may not be here. What we're seeing here could be like a hologram, or something like a like an organic hologram, I guess would be way to say it, right?
Yeah, and I do have to go in 3 minutes, so I'll answer this one as be my final question.
Yeah, we got to jump to the next studio too. So go ahead, bro.
So I do think that's definitely a possibility, and if one of the speculations on space travel is using your own consciousness and your thought, and actually, if you go to the Star Trek Discovery show that I mentioned before, when he taps in the mycelium network, when he puts it on, right, it actually uses his consciousness and his thoughts, because it connects into him, and then he connects his brain with the whole entire mycelium network, which covers the universe, and he can choose any of those mycelium where they're at, and then get transported through the portals within the fungus from one area to wherever that fungus is on the other side of wherever, right? So even in there, they were using it, right? There's so much truth in there, and they actually did a lot of quantum physics research. That one was one of the most truest to actual science Star Treks ever. So anyways, definitely can do that. Now, when it comes to pyramids, I think that the pyramid technology, we exist in this age where we're living in materialism. We just left the dark ages, materialistic age. We've created materialistic ways in order to be able to harness and tap into ability to transfer consciousness, to travel, and all that stuff. There were ages where they were advanced, where they were not in materialistic ages. They created organic, acoustic, non-electric forms of ways to transfer their consciousness and their energy, right? Materials, creating a phone is not the only way to harness energy,
Right.
there's lots of different ways. So they did that, and that's why we don't see little devices and technology, but we see these stone structures. And if you go into the show Stargate, which is another really like, oh my
Yeah.
God, what the heck are they trying to tell us here? That there's actually a book called The Truth About Stargate, and it talks about the fact that they found that Stargate in Egypt, and they did find similar things.
Like 1900s or something, right? 1800s.
Yeah.
Exactly. It came from, and the whole thing was that the pyramids could have been used for healing, transportation, energy grid on the planet, transferring consciousness, multiple things, and the Stargate could have been for star beings to go from planet to planet. So they were using what you said, their thought and the consciousness with just whatever was around them, rather than having to create all this stuff to harness the power of the universe, right?
I was thinking.
And that's probably because they lived in an age where the veils were thinner, and their ability to tap into that awareness was probably easier than it is now.
Mhm.
Yep.
Wild.
Yep.
That's wild. All right, gentlemen, we got to wrap
Thank
this
you very
up.
much, Neil.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
love you
Neil.
guys.
Absolutely amazing presentation. Everybody who's in the chat right now, go to the next one, which should be right below this one. It's part 2 of the milestone event, and we'll see you all there.